Hey guys, every now and again people get into photography and they say, hey, what camera should I get? And without a doubt, it's this one, the Canon M50. I tell people all the time, if you're new to photography, if you're thinking about getting into it, if you want to try it out, this camera is just so good. The fact is, you probably could use your phone if you have a fairly new and awesome phone and get really good pictures. I just don't think you're going to have the same experience. And so I've had this now for about a year and a half, almost a year and 3/4. And I absolutely love it. It's probably the best camera I've ever purchased. It's also the smartest camera gear I've ever purchased, because if I wanted to sell this right now, I could get almost what I paid for it a year and a half ago. It hasn't really lost any value. The reason why it hasn't lost any value is that it's such an awesome value to begin with. I bought this refurbished for like $520 with the kit lens, and like this thing is like unbelievable, the value that you get with it. So just, number one, just a quick lineup why it's such a great value camera. You get dual pixel Canon's amazing dual pixel autofocus. And I was just telling somebody the other day, I was like, you know, on a C100, the Canon's low-end cinema camera, if you want to get the dual pixel autofocus, it's a $500 upgrade to get the exact same autofocus. It's actually not even as good because it doesn't even have a touch screen. So the C100 Mark I doesn't have a touch screen, and it was still $500 to get dual pixel autofocus. The autofocus is so good. Like, I'm shooting this right now on a GH5, but I can't use autofocus. I can't rely on it because it'll start hunting, looking for my face. This never does. Like, it really does. As long as your eyes and your face are not right up on the edge. The only time I've ever had problems when it's right up on the edge. 24 megapixel photos. Photos to me are fine. I haven't really ever had an issue with the photos. I think they're awesome on this camera. The video looks really awesome. So, like, it gives you a wide range of video settings. You can do 1080 at 60. You can do 1080 at 30, 1080 at 24. You can do 720 at 120. So it gives you some pretty good slow motion. And it gives you 4K, and most people complain about the 4K crop, and yes, the 4K crop is kind of annoying. It crops in a lot. Since you're already on 1.6, it crops in another, like, I think up to 2x or something. I don't use the 4K much on my M50, but I have used it. One of the awesomest things about the 4K is I basically treat it like a digital zoom, a built-in digital zoom when I've used it, and it works great for that. So and it's really small and light. I did an adventure race where I did photography with a heavy D1 1D3, a Canon 1D Mark III. Carried that big heavy thing around with a 70-200 zoom lens, and I packed this around with the speed booster and a 50mm. And honestly, I should have just I should have done everything with this, because the photos in the video were just as good, if not better, from this than the 1D. Great autofocus, like I said, it's unbelievable. So basically, this does almost everything. Now, I mentioned, you know, like, you might just be happier using your phone. You might be able to take just as good pictures with your phone. But I have never really, not only do I not like it, I'm just really bad at using phones for photography. And it's probably just it's my problem, you know. I'm just not good at it. It requires more nimble fingers or something, but I just like having controls where I need controls. And I hate, like, just using a camera to me is super annoying. Like, if they built a case that shaped like this and I could put my camera inside the case, then maybe I might want to use it like a big handle on the front or something. But honestly, I just cannot stand, like, using phones, and this is so much better. So some of the drawbacks people talk about is build quality. So one of the, other than the 4K crop, which I don't even think is that big of a deal, build quality gets hammered. So I wanted to show you, I'm not abusive of my equipment, but I don't take care of it. Like, I buy things to use things. I've never kept this thing in a case. I rarely ever use a camera bag. Most of the time I just throw it in the back seat of the car. I have taken it on many trips, taken it on many adventures. I've dropped it a few times. And I've honestly abused it a little bit in the process of using it, and this thing is fine. So it does have two issues that has popped up, and I don't know if they're build quality related, but one of the issues is this is always kind of annoying. You know, like better Canon cameras, most better cameras have a side door over here somewhere to remove your video, your SD cards. This does not. You have to open the battery compartment, which oftentimes if you have it on a tripod or something is very annoying. And then you have to pop out the card like that. Same way, the little clicky thing. Well, the other day, this clicky thing got stuck, and then it got stuck again, then it got stuck again, and it kept getting stuck. But I had to keep tapping the camera. It's not got stuck recently, so I don't know. You would think that all cameras use the same SD clippy card holder doohickey, so that shouldn't really be like special for this camera. But that did cause, I don't know if some debris or something got in there, because, you know, like there's not a lot of seals or anything around any of this stuff. I haven't used it in the rain really, so I can't say if it would be like, I wouldn't trust this camera in the rain like I might trust like my 1D. The other problem I've had with it, the other issue, the microphone port. This mic jack is now a little bit loose in there, and it kind of rattles in there sometime. And the other day, I'm almost certain I had my mic plugged in and I had my mic turned on, and I was getting no audio at all. And then recently, I know a few times I've gotten some real scratchy bad audio, which I thought was just my mic's battery was dead. But maybe there's something going on here. I've tested it several times and it seems okay, but every now and again something goes wrong. So I got the mic jack and I got the SD card. Battery life. People talk about battery life isn't very good. And it's a tiny little battery. It's a small camera. I mean, I'm not out there shooting. I'm not a professional out shooting, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours. But like I said, I did that adventure race. I carried 2 batteries and I was in the field for 12 hours using this camera and going back and forth between still photos with a DSLR and this for video, and I used 2 batteries all day long. I think maybe I used 3, but either way, that's not, I mean, that was all day shooting, and it just wasn't an issue. So I think that's something people kind of overreact on. So what's the problem? What is the problem with this camera? There's really one problem that I'm aware of, and that is that it's a beginner camera. And this is a problem that gets in your head. You feel like this is a beginner camera, and maybe I need to move past being a beginner now. I'm not a beginner anymore, and I need to get past that, so I need to get a better camera. That's probably one of the primary reasons I got a GH5. I just wanted to experiment more with different video settings and try different codecs and more slow motion options and more 4K options. And so, yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest problem with this camera, is that people tell you it's a beginner camera. You find online it's a beginner camera. So let's do a little footage comparison. We'll see how it looks compared to the GH5. So this is the M50 with the Viltrox speed booster, a Canon 28-135 USM IS lens, and all of the stabilization, the digital stabilization turned off. So it's pretty jerky. I'm moving it around at like 135. So it's pretty jerky handheld and doesn't look very good. I'm using the autofocus of the camera, which is great, but not as smooth as it would be if it was an actual lens for this camera, an STM lens or an M-mount lens. Let's do the same thing again. This time we'll use all the enhanced stabilization and we'll use the kit lens, and we will see how that looks. Also, listen to the sound. I think this is the onboard audio, not a microphone. I think it sounds great. So here's compared to a GH5. I've got that same Canon 28-135 lens on there, using a Metabone speed booster. Onboard image stabilization is quite a bit better, quite a bit smoother. You know, it holds it very, very smooth. You don't see nearly as many jitters. The picture looks amazing, but you also have to remember that the file sizes are about 4 times larger. And I'm also I'm having to focus by hand. I can't autofocus, which isn't too big a deal for something like this. I have to say that the Viewfinder, I used a Viewfinder for both of these. Like, instead of the screen, the viewfinder is so much better on the GH5. I mean, there's a reason though. It's a twice as expensive camera. And this is kind of where that beginner feeling can hit you. You know, I'm only shooting 30 megabits per second and 8 bits color. So, hey, it's an awesome camera. I highly recommend it.